Could this finally be the video where I admit that we were wrong about the Acolyte all along? It's definitely not. Hey y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. So dedicated fans of Disney Plus's The Acolyte, that's right, all 12 dedicated fans of The Acolyte, are rejoicing this week at the sight of headlines like this, citing The Acolyte as the #2 most streamed show on Disney Plus for the entirety of 2024. New streaming reports show that The Acolyte was in fact the second most popular streamed show on the Disney Plus platform, with over 2.7 billion minutes viewed. And that sounds like a lot, right? To be honest, when I first saw the headline, I thought, holy shit, I said this show was terrible the whole fucking time, and it was. I said nobody was watching it, apparently I was wrong, and I also felt like, well shit, maybe the petitions to bring it back were a little justified, right? 2.7 billion minutes. I mean, they are so happy to just cut out that part of the headline, right? The 2.7 billion minutes. Because I mean, I'm sorry, you switch out an M for million and put a B in front of it, and I'm gonna freak the fuck out and think it's a huge number. But the fact of the matter is that The Acolyte's success is more comparable to like if you shit yourself while you were driving home, and yeah, your pants and socks and shoes were ruined, but there wasn't anything on your car seat, right? That's kind of what it is. Disney shit itself with The Acolyte, but at least it didn't stain the car seat. And what do I mean by that? So this report was done by Luminate, and they analyzed a number of different aspects of viewing last year, but they really got into the weeds about Disney and some of these big franchises. And they reported that Star Wars, Marvel, as well as Lord of the Rings with Rings of Power all saw huge drops in viewership last year, which isn't to be surprised considering that everything has also taken a huge drop in quality as of the last couple of years, and 2024 was one of the worst years for Marvel and Star Wars that we've seen yet. They cited that Disney Plus's Echo and Agatha All Along both underperformed when it came to Marvel, which surprised literally no one. But what we're talking about here is The Acolyte, right? So even though The Acolyte snagged that #2 spot on Disney Plus's streaming with those 2.7 billion minutes viewed, I want you to take a look at this graph. Editing Jay, that's a fucking giraffe. I said graph? Thank you. Okay, this graph. I want you to look at this graph. This graph essentially shows the viewership from episode to episode of The Acolyte, and just note how sharply it drops off from the first episode to the very last one. And I think it's very obvious that people started dropping like flies immediately after the first episode. And I'm sure most of those people that held on were either drinking serious amounts of copium or were reviewers putting themselves through it for the sake of reviewing it. But let's be fair here, right? Sure, the viewership dropped off, but 2.7 billion minutes viewed, that's nothing to sneeze at, except it is. And it is a sign that Star Wars is a dying franchise, partially helped even closer into the grave by The Acolyte. See, 2.7 billion minutes viewed is actually absolute dog shit. Sure, the billion sounds impressive, and it's an 8-episode series, right? The episodes weren't even that long. 2.7 billion. Allow me to introduce you to The Mandalorian. In 2019, season 1 of The Mandalorian premiered on Disney Plus. Need I remind you that Disney Plus at the time was a brand new streaming service, so it was a really big deal. So The Mandalorian premieres with an 8-episode season released weekly, and by the end of that run, do you want to take a guess at how many minutes viewed The Mandalorian season 1 had? I'm not even gonna let you guess. 5.42 billion. I'm gonna repeat that. 5.42 billion. Double what The Acolyte had. And even more impressive, the week the finale of The Mandalorian season 1 aired, it literally gained 1.15 billion minutes of viewing time. If you heard a meow in the middle of that sentence, that was my cat, and I'm not about to re-record this. I'm so sorry. Now you might be thinking, Jay, that was a different time, and trying to compare The Acolyte to The Mandalorian is just not fair for some reason. I don't know, come up with one. It's not fair. The Acolyte did just fine. It did great on Disney Plus. Surely that viewership counts for something. Actually, let's take a look at this chart. These were the top 10 original series all released in 2024. I'd like to ask if you can can see the Acolyte anywhere on here. Let me double check. Number 10, we have Love is Blind, Griselda, Fallout, The Gentleman, Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, that was a doozy. Tulsa King, The Perfect Couple, Landman, John Hamm is in that one. Bridgerton, interesting. Fool Me Once. Yeah, the Acolyte isn't fucking on it. Probably because 2.7 billion minutes watched didn't mean jack shit in the grand scheme of things getting watched. Ladies and gentlemen, The Acolyte, regardless of any redeeming qualities that you might want to dig out of it, was a failure for Disney. It was a failure. It was an incredibly expensive failure, with it costing literally over $600,000 a minute. And then they want to complain about the budget and blame the failure of this absolutely abysmal TV series on trolls and internet hatred. This TV series has nothing to blame but itself and Disney. The Acolyte was a failure both in finance and in fandom, and to be completely honest, should be a case study in what not to do, both in producing a show, respecting a franchise's canon, and also in responding to very valid criticism from fans. People made those petitions, but at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. And The Acolyte just did not have the legs to take on a second season. And that's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check me out on Instagram. And if you'd like to support me, this channel, and my content creation, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot sets and cosplay content. I'll add links to all of those in the description below. And let me know your thoughts on the Acolyte streaming numbers in the comments below.